Hi guys! Today I'm going to talk about my 4th of July market and tell you how it went and show you everything that I sold at it. And I'll also tell you the prices of everything. So this market was on the 4th of July and it was a really hot day. I believe it was like over 100 degrees. And it was kind of a weird market for me because normally my boyfriend takes me to the market and he loads up most of the stuff and helps me carry it, and this time he was working, so my dad helped me. But even just like loading everything up from the house into the car, I was already like pouring sweat because it was so hot out. And then when we got in the car, I was like, oh well, I'll cool off on the way there and then I'll be ready to unload. Well, I forgot that his air conditioner was broken in his car. So it was not a cool ride there, it was a hot ride there. And then when we got to the market to set up, it was like around noon. And so it was like in the heat of the day and we had to like carry everything to our spot back and forth to the car. We did have like the little cart with wheels, so I pulled some stuff on that, but it was still a lot of back and forth in the heat. And so I was already like exhausted just by setting everything up. It was super hot. I was just sitting there like sweating the entire time. So it was not the most comfortable market. And there were actually a lot of vendors there. I wasn't really sure what to expect because I had never been to this event. And there was a lot more vendors than I was expecting, and there was food trucks. It was a big event and it went from, I believe, 2 p.m. until 10 p.m. And so in the beginning it was just really hot, but the weather was good other than that. And then later on during the day we got some crazy weather, which I'll tell you about that as we get to it. This is my booth before the market. Also, the reason that my yarn wall is not behind me is because we got new furniture, and so we've been moving everything around, and my yarn shelf is not where it usually is, and my chair is not where it usually is, and my desk is not where it usually is while we're moving everything around. So for this video and probably the next one, maybe a couple, you're just gonna have this background. But I will go back to having my yarn wall behind me soon. But I'll go ahead and start with the first thing that I sold. As usual, I'm going to put a picture up of each item that I sold. So the first thing that I sold was a green popping mushroom. And then that same person also got a strawberry. So those sold together for $30 because I sold them each for $15. Next, I sold one of my pins, and this was the one with the spider on it, and that sold for $2. And that was actually all that I sold in the first hour. This market was kind of strange because there were a lot of people at the event and a lot of people walking around, but not a lot of them seemed to be shopping, and most people were walking like right past my booth. And I kind of put it where the tables were like back inside the tent so that people could come in, because I thought since it was so hot, people would want to come under the tent to get in the shade for a minute while they're shopping. But a lot of people just walked past and they didn't really come into the booth. So I think a lot of people were just kind of there to check it out and maybe not really there to shop. I don't know if that was just my experience, but that's what it seemed like to me. So that was all that I did in the first hour. And then for the second hour, I sold a Triceratops, and that sold for $15. And then I sold an Axolotl, and this was like a pastel rainbow one, and that sold for $20. Next, I sold an Octo, and this was like a blue speckled one, and that sold for $12. And then I sold a purple axolotl, and that sold for $20. And that's everything that I sold in the second hour. And then for the third hour, the first thing that I sold was one of my large dinos, and this was a blue one, and that sold for $50. And then I sold a classic bee, and that sold for $15. And that's everything that I sold for the third hour. I was getting kind of annoyed at this point because there were so many people at the event, so many people walking around, yet still not that many people were coming into the booths and not that many people were shopping. I was definitely glad for the people that were, but it was just kind of weird that there were so many people, but most of them weren't shopping. And then for the next hour, I only sold 2 items. So the first thing I sold was a pickle, and that sold for $15. And then I sold my large mama whale, and I was excited about this one. I had it out for quite a few markets. It's one of the higher priced items that I don't expect to sell like at the first market. I expect it to sit around for a while until it finds the right person. But there was this little girl, and she was looking at it, and I was like, yeah, and it has the little baby, it's a mom. And she was like, well, which other ones have a baby? And I was like, none of them, it's the only one. She was like, Mom, it's the only one that has a baby, I have to get that one. So that was really cute. She really loved it, so I'm glad that they got that one. And that one I did sell for $70 because it did take quite a long time for me to make it, and it had the baby as well, so it was kind of like 2 plushies in one. That was actually the last thing that I sold at this market because it started to storm. So it started to look like a little cloudy, and I was like, oh great, we're gonna get some cloud coverage from the heat. But then we like heard thunder, and I was like, oh no. And so we knew it was probably going to rain, but we didn't expect it to rain so hard. Like, out of nowhere, it just started pouring rain. It didn't sprinkle first, it just started pouring. And at this point, I only had one wall on the back of my tent to try to block the sun, but there weren't other walls on it yet. And the wind was like blowing the rain in, and so we had to hurry and try to put a wall up, so we got wet. And my dad actually got soaked. And with my tent, there's like some holes in it that it's designed that way so that the air can flow through it, but whenever it rains, then the water tries to drip through those holes. And so then the water started dripping through those holes, and it was dripping onto the tables. And so I had to move my plushies, and I was trying to like scoot them over, like, oh, it's dripping here, so move it out of the way, and it's dripping here, move those out of the way. And so everything was getting moved on the table. And then I realized that it was dripping into my chair, which is like a fabric chair. And so my chair got soaked. And then I realized my yarn bag, which had my yarn in it, was also getting wet. So I had to move it. And it just continued to pour for a few minutes. I actually have a clip of it raining, but this was after the rain calmed down some. It was raining much harder than this, but by the time I got everything figured out and took the video, it had kind of slowed down. But anyways, I'll insert the clip of that. And whenever it started raining, a whole like family or group of people came under my tent to try to get out of the rain, which I don't mind, except that I couldn't get to my stuff to move it. And so I was like trying to move everything from behind, but I couldn't really reach around my shelves. And so it was a hassle trying to get everything to where it wouldn't be wet. And so much rain was getting in that it was actually pooling on the tablecloths, like more than the tablecloth could absorb. So there were puddles of water trying to like drip towards my other plushies. And I was very frustrated. I was very hot. I was very exhausted. And at this point, I was just like, everything's wet. I've got to put everything away. I can't just keep pushing it out of the way and pushing it out of the way because everything's getting wet anyways. So at this point I just started putting everything away into the totes, and I got like half of the stuff into the totes, and all of a sudden it stops raining. But I was so hot and so exhausted that I decided to just go ahead and pack up. And there were a lot of other vendors around me that also had already packed up and left or were leaving. And like I said in some of my past videos, I very rarely leave early, but at this one I was just so tired and hot and uncomfortable and frustrated with the situation. And we looked at the weather, and it was supposed to rain for like another hour. Like it was supposed to be like, I think 30 minutes without rain, and then the rain was going to come back for an hour, and then maybe have an hour without rain. And I decided that I did not want to put everything back up and then have to take it back down when it rained again and then put it back up again. So I just thought it wasn't worth it. I already had half of the stuff packed up. So we went ahead and just packed up and left. And part of me wishes I would have stayed, but I know that I would not have enjoyed it because I was not feeling great. And as we were leaving, we saw the huge line to get into the park, like a super long line of cars all the way down the street to get into the park. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have stayed. But I'm also not sure if most of the people might have been going mainly to see the fireworks because they shoot them off from the park. So I was thinking maybe that's why people weren't shopping as much, as they were mostly there just for the fireworks and for fun, but they weren't really there to shop. So this market wasn't exactly what I expected. It didn't go quite how I wanted it to, but I did make a decent amount of money, especially for leaving early. So at this market in total, I made $249. So that was pretty good. For how I felt afterwards, I didn't feel good at the time about it because I was just so tired. It didn't feel like a good day. But looking back at it, I did make a decent amount. So that was good. But I'm not sure if I want to do this event in the future just because of how hot it is. If it were not so hot, I would do it again. But because of that, I'm not really sure. And I think that if they changed the event to where it was like in the evening, like maybe 5 to 10 or 6 to 10, it would be a lot more tolerable because it's not in the heat of the day. But because it started at 2 and we started setting up at noon, it was just like in the heat of the day, and it was too much for me. So I don't know, I might try it again next year, but right now I'm thinking probably not, just because of the heat. If it were an indoor event or if it wasn't so hot, then I might think about doing it, but I'm thinking probably not for now. But that's how the event went. It wasn't perfect, but you know, they usually aren't perfect. There's usually something that happens crazy. I don't know. But anyways, I will have some more videos coming out soon. A couple more market vlogs, as well as some tutorials for how to crochet some of my free patterns. Specifically my fall and Halloween plushies. I will be making tutorials for those soon. So make sure that you are subscribed if you want to make sure to see those. Let me know in the comments which item I sold today was your favorite. Thanks for watching.